Today I'm working on my Stihl FS90 Trimmer brush cutter. This is a great unit. I can't say enough good things about it. It's a unique design. It's the Stihl 4-mix they call it, which is that it's a 4-stroke engine, but you still pre-mix oil and gas, which sounds kind of silly. Most people are like, well, wait a minute, is the whole idea having a 4-stroke so you don't have to pre-mix? Well, the reason why it's a 4-stroke is because it is very quiet. I mean, I use hearing protection with it, but honestly, a lot of people could probably get away with not using hearing protection running this unit. It doesn't annoy the neighbors anywhere near as much as those whiny 2-stroke engines do. So, I mean, that's a big improvement right there. It's got plenty of power. So then that begs the question, well, if it's a 4-stroke, why do you need to pre-mix? You need to pre-mix because what it does share in common with a 2-stroke is it has no crankcase filled with oil. The bearings for the crankshaft are lubricated through the mixture. So what that does for you is that makes it very light. So it's as light as a 2-stroke, but as quiet as a 4-stroke. So in my opinion, it's the best of both worlds. I really like the design. However, last season when I put it away, I think I forgot to drain the tank and make sure that there was fuel stabilizer in it and any fresh gas that I had stored in it. So, make a long story short, actually I think I didn't even use it last season. I didn't need it because I've been using it primarily as a brush cutter. I've got the string trimmer on there now, but I took it out this spring for cleanup day for the Little League and was trying to use it down at the field, and made the mistake of not checking it before I got down there and was disgusted to find that I had a very hard time starting it. When I did finally start it, I could only get it to stay running on full choke, which is obviously not right. The other thing I noticed is that when I press the primer bulb here, there's no fuel whatsoever entering that primer bulb, and I'm actually getting a whistling sound when I press it. So something's wrong here, so I'm going to dig into the cause of the problem today. So for starters, what I did was there was one screw that takes this cover off. Then you can pull the air filter out. And then you can pull the air filter housing off. And that exposes the carburetor. But the carburetor doesn't want to slide fully forward because there's a line on the bottom back there that looks like a breather line. Or actually that looks like a vent line that probably runs maybe the fuel pump off of the crankcase pressure. So that line right there is kind of hard to get to. I don't want to just go pulling it off. So to me it looks like the next logical thing might be to drop the fuel tank off. The fuel tank looks like it just engages a couple of lugs in the front here. So I'm thinking there's just one screw and that tank comes off. The trimmer comes with this wrench. If you've ever owned a Stihl chainsaw, usually it comes with this on one end and a regular bladed screwdriver on the end, and they call it a scrunch. This is, I guess, a scorch because it's got the sockets on one side, but it's got a Torx bit on the other side, and that fits the cover here for your air filter. Basically, you get an adjustment here. I mean, this thing, basically everything on it nicely fits that same size bit. So you can really do a lot of disassembly to this in the field. And of course this is a spark plug wrench on here. And then of course this is also to change your attachments on your trimmer. So right now it's looking to me like this is the screw that, along with 2 other screws, holds this recoil assembly onto the back. But it looks like that's also the screw that goes through the part of the back of the tank. So I'm going to remove that one first. Okay, it turns out you have to remove all 3 screws and remove the recoil assembly. I've never had this apart before, so I'm kind of learning as I go along. And then that exposes the 2 lugs that the tank is on. So now I should be able to pull the tank back and it should disengage from those front lugs. Now, isn't that cool? It just basically sits, got these rubber things right here. One of them stayed behind in the frame and the other one stayed on the plastic pin on top of the tank here. So now my whole tank comes off. And what that's going to let me do now is if I turn the trimmer up on its side, I can actually unscrew that bottom fuel pump assembly there and not have to worry about even disconnecting it from that hose if I don't want to. but I am going to disconnect the fuel lines here. So this fuel line, when the tank's in position, this is the outermost fuel line, goes to the lower connection on the carb, and the inner fuel line here goes to the upper connection on the carb. And those don't have any clamps on them, so they just slide off. So I'm going to use a screwdriver. Now, when I went to pull these lines off, one of these lines, as I was loosening it, gas started squirting out, so there's gas under pressure in that line. And the other line, when I pulled it off, it made a large sucking sound. So it seems like it was either there's a blockage in there or that's normal. I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to look for the obvious things. Alright, now I'm going to drain the fuel tank. Now that's good clean gas that I had put in there. One of the first things I did when I discovered it wasn't running well was I did drain off the gas that was in there that was stale and put in clean fuel. Okay, now I lightly blow on each one of these lines. One line is completely clear because it's just a vent line back into the tank. The other line goes down to the in-tank fuel filter, which is right there, which actually looks pretty clean, but I also blow into it, and there's going to be some restriction because of the fuel filter, but it shouldn't be completely blocked. Now with the tank off, I can completely invert the trimmer so that the bottom of the carburetor is facing up, so that when I take these two screws off and remove this little cover for the fuel pump on the bottom here, anything in there that is loose will not just fall out. So this looks like it's in two sections. So when you remove the two screws, the whole bottom piece comes up and off, and there's the diaphragm. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these two halves right here to get a look inside there. That actually looks pretty good. Looks clean on this side. Passages look like they're open. You can very carefully pull up on the diaphragm and take a look in there. And that also looks pretty clean. My first initial look at the carburetor here looks pretty good. And so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to now remove the carburetor. I have already taken off the throttle cable, which is right here, and the choke actually comes with the carburetor. So now this whole carburetor assembly slides right off. And I'm going to leave that gasket on the studs for now. Now I'm going to remove these 4 screws on the top and take off the primer bulb. Once the primer bulb is removed, then this whole assembly, priming assembly or priming pump, can be removed also. And then of course this, when it goes back on, it really can't go on any other way I think than this way, but the fuel line is going to be over here by the choke, this line right here. So that doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too bad from that side either. Actually, still looking for that elusive something that's clogging something. Now, I'm going to very carefully pull up this diaphragm to get a peek underneath it. I'm being very careful so that I don't tear this diaphragm. If I tear it, well, then I'm going to have to go get a new one and replace it, but I'd rather just not have to do that today. So I'll pull the diaphragm off. And now I'm starting to see a little bit of varnish here. Alright, so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to get some carb cleaner and see if I can't spray into some of the ports here and see if I can't affect some sort of change. Nothing obvious. This little tiny metal piece right here, I haven't done a lot of work on these type of carbs. This is the type of carb that has no float, so that it doesn't, it's not affected no matter what direction you put it in, vertical, horizontal. But anyways, I know that bending this in any way is a critical alignment. There's a critical alignment there. You don't want to go messing with this. Okay, I've tossed the carburetor in the carb cleaner basket and cleaned up these other items already, and I did find that this tube right here that goes into this assembly appears to be completely blocked. No amount of blowing or sucking on that tube is giving me any indication of anything coming through the other side. So I think I've found my blockage. Well, there's a membrane or a diaphragm behind this little hole right here. When you press in on that with a tiny pin, that activates some sort of check valve and allows you to blow through here. So apparently it's not a blockage in there, it's just by design. So that ain't the answer. But there is some crud down here in these other passages, so I'm going to make sure I get that out. Well, I've squirted carb cleaner through as many of the passages as I could find. Cleaned a lot of the dirt out of the parts, and now I'm going to reassemble it and see if I have any change. Okay, I've completely reassembled it and put fresh gas in there. So first thing I'm going to do is see if the primer bulb is working any differently. It doesn't appear to be doing anything. Oh, wait, no, there we go. Now it's pulling fuel up. Fuel line was completely empty. Ah. Primer bulb. You can see the air purging out of the line there. It's actually starting to work like a primer bulb should. Let's see what happens. Okay, I got the choke in the full on position. Well, I think we did it. That's how it should run. The choke full off. Oops. Spoke too soon. Maybe just needed to warm it up a little more. Alright. I kept this in the start position, which is high RPMs, for about 10 seconds before I put it to the idle position. So now it's warmed up a little. Now it seems to be running okay. Oh, see here, hesitating on acceleration here. Nope, something's still screwy. Well, it's restarting no problem, and if I start it on high speed, it runs on high speed and doesn't die out. So it's getting plenty of fuel on high speed with the choke open. So I did fix whatever was blocked. So that's working fine. It's just hesitating on. But that might just be my high speed adjustment might need to be tweaked. You get an idle adjustment here, and then you get a high and a low speed. I also have it kind of inverted, so let me lower it down. I'm going to let it warm up a little more before I try any adjustments. Yeah, when I goose it, it kills it. So, I'm not sure, that might just be an adjustment. Restarts on one pull though, so that's good. It's not hard to start anymore. And if I slowly bring it up, yeah, it just doesn't like me to give it quick. Let's see. It's warmed up some now. I might try and adjust it now. So here are the adjustments. It's actually marked right on this plastic right here. It tells you that this one here is the low speed, and the one that's further outbound is the high speed, and then this down here is your idle adjustment. All right, I think I got it. I tweaked the low and the high speed adjustments, and now it's acting like it should. So that's it.